Welcome back to another episode of Questions and Answers. I'm Scott Wilkinson. I've been a professional piercer since 1994. And today what we're doing is we're going over a bunch of questions, and I'm going to answer all these as best as we can. Now, when you're asking our questions here, make sure you send in a thorough question so we can answer it to the best of our ability. And on the other side of the camera over here, of course, we have Jared. So say hi to Jared.
Everybody. Good to see you. Hi to Lonesome Toast and Mark, who've been here waiting for us. And hi, Cheryl and Nix also. Starting with some good questions. Nice to see you all here.
Well, let's get started.
All right. So first question we have is from Rebecca, and it's actually a really good question. She wants to get 2 vertical helix piercings and then turn them into an orbital. Do we want to get them pierced separately with the 2 studs so that it can swell, or do you want to pierce it with the ring? And maybe show us what we're talking about in a picture.
Sure. Well, actually, I'm going to start off with a normal ear first. So now when you're looking in the ear, what we're talking about with an orbital, like an industrial is where a bar goes from side to side like this with one bar. But an orbital is where you're going to do a ring. So half the ring's on the front and half the ring's on the back. Now we're going to go to the drawing screen here, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So like if this is, let's see if I can go to the right screen here. So you got your ear, and the ring is going to go all the way through it, just like so. So there's a hole right here and a hole right here. Now, the thing is if you don't pierce this with the ring right away, these angles are not going to stay parallel, and they're going to start going at different angles, and you're not going to be able to put that ring in once it's healed up. So start it with the ring. Make sure you have enough room for that swelling. It's not too small of a ring, and it's a long heal. Probably expect at least a year to heal this one. Maybe 6 to 8 months if you're lucky.
So basically always start with that ring.
Always start with the ring. You heal with those studs, and they're going to heal at different angles, and it won't work.
All right.
Yes.
Next up, we have a question from Audrey M. Hello.
Sure.
What size do you recommend piercing a septum at if you plan to stack? What does it mean, stack?
Okay. Stacking basically means when you have a normal septum pierce through the middle of your nose here, you're going to put multiple rings in there. So you're stacking a lot of rings. Some people will stretch and put a larger gauge ring in there, like maybe a 4-gauge ring. But instead of putting the 4, you might put in like maybe 6, 16, or 18-gauge rings. So it's a bunch of piercings inside there. Now, the septum stretch is really easy. Generally about a month and a half to 2 months between each stretch you would jump up. Now, if you don't want to do the stretching process, you can pierce at a larger size. Generally, the biggest I'll pierce someone at is probably going to be around an 8-gauge. But once you start getting larger sizes, you have to start with a plug, so you're not going to have very visible jewelry. So typically, I just tell people start with a normal size and stretch it up. It's part of the process.
All right. Next question from Agnes. Hello. I hope you guys are doing well.
Hello.
And we are. Thank you for asking. I recently got my navel pierced a week ago, and I'm wondering when it will be safe for me to go to the beach.
All right. Another fantastic question, because we're getting into the summer here. Well, here in the United States. Basically, your piercing is an open wound for 1 month. So if you're exposing it to lakes, rivers, oceans, things like that, you're increasing the chance of a bacterial infection, possible staph infection, which will send you to the hospital. So completely avoid any bodies of water for at least 1 month. Now, after that, if you're healing up really good and you don't have much crusties and it seems closed, you're okay to go in. But if it's still a lot of crusties and it doesn't seem healed, you might want to get a Tegaderm patch to put over the top. Now, a Tegaderm patch is a waterproof Band-Aid that looks like clear saran wrap. These work for nipple piercings and belly button piercings, but they don't work well for ears. So that's about the only way you'd be able to go swimming is if you can put a waterproof Band-Aid on anytime before like a month.
All right. Dancing Leaf says, hey, Scott and Jared, your video inspired them, and they ended up with 2 frenum scaffold piercings.
Awesome. Hopefully that went well. And the frenum scaffold, I'm guessing it's the genital ones, which is the bottom side of the penis is 2 bars side to side like that. Is that what they're talking about, the frenum?
We can have them confirm if that's in fact what we
Let us know. And how'd it go?
So 7 wants to know, what's a good ear piercing besides lobes? What's your favorite other than lobes?
It depends on your anatomy. Everyone's ear shape is different. And one of the most frustrating things as a piercer is when someone comes in and says, I want this ear, but it's not the same body shape. So some people might have an amazing tragus, for multiple piercings. Some people don't even have a tragus that's pierceable. So I can't really tell you exactly what the best option would be. And if you're interested, maybe send some pictures into the What Should I Get Pierced series, and there I can tell you a bunch of cool options for you. And if you haven't checked out that series, check it out. It's a lot of fun.
Sydney wants to know what your favorite piercing is to do on others.
I like to pierce cool people. I've been piercing since 1994, and I've done pretty much all the piercings. And it's more about the experience in the room for me than it is my favorite piercing to do. So if you're happy and you're excited and we have a good time, that's my favorite piercing. I know it's kind of like a weird answer, but I don't have a favorite piercing anymore. It's all about the people.
Hello to Emily and The Real Deal. We're glad you guys are here.
Welcome.
Lauren Perez wants to know how long we should wait before we stretch a septum.
Okay, stretching a septum. If it's all the way healed up, you don't have the crusties on there and it feels loose, you can probably go to the next size. It's about 1.5 months to 2 months between each stretch. And keep in mind, a proper stretch isn't really going to hurt. It's going to be tight, but if it hurts, you're overdoing it. You need to back off and give it a little bit more time.
It's a good question because a lot of people normally transition from stainless steel and then begin wearing titanium as the upgrade.
Yeah.
Is it okay to go from wearing titanium back to the stainless steel?
Absolutely. There is no qualms with the type of metal as long as you don't have a reaction to it. Now, the big difference is titanium is much lighter than this. Titanium is much lighter than the surgical steel, but some people have reactions to the surgical steel because of the amount of nickel content in there. It's a real minute, small amount, but if you have that reaction to it, that's going to be the problem. So if you want the weight to kind of help stretch a little bit, weight's generally not the answer, but it can help loosen it up a little bit. Totally safe.
A very interesting and very general sort of question, but I'll bounce it off you anyway because these things are fun.
Sure.
Dancing Leaf wants to know, what are some of the issues with the piercing industry that you believe are solvable? So what are some of the big problems facing you that you think probably there is a solution to at some point in the future?
That's a really deep question.
It really is.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a lot of jewelry manufacturers. There needs to be more basics. Okay. We need more basic circular barbells, labrets, things like that. A lot of these newer companies, I think, are putting out so many different types of fancy tops and fancy this and fancy this, but no one's making the basics anymore. Okay. So if there's more basics, there will be less wait time, and therefore people will get the things they needed. Sometimes people are waiting 6 months up to a year for certain jewelry to come in because certain companies take so long to get the jewelry in. It's because they're only producing the fancy high-end stuff, but not the wearable basic starter stuff.
Because there's probably a higher profit margin on the fancy stuff than on something basic.
That would help a ton. And just better public education on why certain things. That's what I'm trying to do here, trying to educate everyone and get better education on what's safe and what isn't, because there's a lot of people out there who just want to take your money and they don't care about health and safety. And it's all about health and safety if we want the longevity of this piercing to last. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we're going to get all these regulations and things coming down on us if, we just keep putting out bad things and everyone's getting infections and everyone's doing the wrong thing. And pretty soon the city's just going to say, no, you can't have them anymore. No one's doing it right. So proper education is huge.
Proper education. Yeah. So those are some pretty good answers. I believe those are actually things that we could work on.
That's good. We're working on it.
Jennifer Sam says, hi, Scott. Loved your videos. They're so informative. I was recently in Minnesota and met a piercer who knows you, Hannah at Sacred Siren.
I know Hannah. She used to be my client way back in the day, and now she's a piercer, and I follow her too. It's pretty cool to see that. I'm originally from Minnesota, so I pierced a lot of people from Minnesota. Probably put in almost 20 years piercing up there. So, yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool.
All right. So, and we have a little update. We talked to Ariane earlier. Hi, guys. I was one who had some piercings for almost a year and none of them healed. Remember, we spoke to them in a Q&A a little while ago. The problem wasn't the jewelry or the piercer. It was me. I'm not very patient and I roll over like crazy in my sleep and I wake up in different positions. And I was also always getting my ear caught on something. So it was all my fault. Haha, I love you.
The aftercare is such a huge part. And me, for example, like when I sleep, I wake up on all my piercings and I find myself scratching tattoos in my sleep. It's not the best thing, but some people will put socks on their hands so they're not scratching, touching things. Sometimes like that donut pillow, so your head's kind of stuck in one position. It's tough to do when you move around like that. So
now, Summer Wise has a question that you're not going to really like, but there's probably stuff you can say about it.
Sure.
Why did my earlobe bleed so much when I pierced it myself?
So many reasons. Like what size needle or what type of needle did you use? Did you put in like a super huge needle and a real small piece of jewelry? Did you like poke it many times so it's not just one hole and you have There's a lot of things that could go wrong. Instant reaction to the metal, possibly the chemicals you're using to clean and prep the area.
Do we advocate piercing yourself ever?
No, we never advocate piercing yourselves because of things like this. Number one, you're going to develop metal allergies where you're introducing bad metals to your bloodstream, where you can't wear like belts, jeans. The snaps on will cause rashes and reactions to happen, blood infections. The list of things go on and on. So don't get pierced by yourself at home. Go to a professional. It'll heal better. It's going to look better, and you're going to be taken care of.
And I think the look better is an important one. Like, you always focus on the health and safety, which I get. You're the piercer. That's where your mind automatically goes. But I think what these kids don't realize is they're going to pierce themselves crooked.
Yeah.
Like that, even if you don't get sick, even if you think you're so tough, you're not going to get an infection. That's fine. You're going to get a crooked piercing. It's not going to look good.
I get people
You don't cut your own hair, do you?
Yeah. I get people asking me all the time, like trying to match a nostril piercing. Like, why are you staring at me like that? I'm like, I'm looking at these angles. I'm seeing the angle it's sitting at. I want to make sure we put the rings in. There's, they're not one all up high and one lower. And there's a lot involved, and it's not easy to do. I don't even pierce myself. Let me say that. I don't even pierce myself. I have all the equipment. I have a shop, and I still have another piercer do it for me. That should say something.
They're just going to do a better job. It makes a lot of sense. Miranda Green has a Doth piercing that we got in December.
Okay.
And the swelling hasn't gone down at all. We have a big bump that hurts bad. I got rid of the other bump. What should I do for bump and swelling?
Okay. Find the source of the irritation. That is why the bump is there. Whether the ring is rotating back and forth and you're pulling crusties inside, whether you're wearing earphones, stethoscopes, if you're sticking your finger in there, twisting and turning it, all these things are going to cause irritation, which will cause the bump. Once it stops being irritated, the bump's going to go away and the swelling is going to go down and you're going to be healed up. So figure out why it's hurting. Are crusties getting pulled in? Do you need to clean those off more? Are you sleeping on it? There's a lot of variables. So figure out the source, and that should help. Oh, another thing I wanted to say is maybe the chewy size is wrong size.
Okay.
Because generally if you have a ring in there, you want to have about 2/3 of the ring showing and about 1/3 inside. So most of the ring should be showing. If half the ring's inside there, you've overswelled and you need a larger ring to accommodate room for that swelling. So that would be the other factor.
That could be it, Miranda.
Yes,
It could be potentially your ring is the wrong size.
Or if the ring has a scratch or nick, or if it's low quality jewelry and you're having a reaction to it.
To the metal.
So
a few different
maybe
things
go talk to your piercer and have them take a look.
Chris K has a really good question. I've never heard this one before. How long should I wait until I go into a sauna after a piercing? And we're talking about their own sauna, not a public one.
Mm-hmm. That is a good question. You should be totally fine.
Yeah, because you're not really in contact.
It's just steam, and it's basically like being in a shower. Your crusties might get a little soft and whatnot, and when you get out, you could probably wipe them off.
Probably a good thing.
I mean, yeah, that would be about it.
Shouldn't hurt. Really.
Shouldn't hurt at all. Yeah.
All right, Chris, sauna away.
Oh, I've been in a sauna before. Some jewelry does get hot. So I noticed my nipple rings, I come out and all of a sudden the nipples will the rings will move. I'm like, ooh, that's hot. And you feel it. You don't realize it, but it
gets physically warm.
Not a big deal, but it'll shock you.
See, these are the insights that you can only get from the Piercing with Scott channel.
Yeah.
How do I get rid of a hypergranulation bump on a 7-week-old VCH piercing? It's uncomfortable and slightly bleeds. Plus, it's unsightly.
Okay. A VCH is a vertical clitoral hood. So basically what that is if this is where the clit is, you have the skin on top, which is the hood, and it's a curved barbell going through that part. Now, if you have a bump on the top, it could be because the jewelry is too short where it's pinching. It could be the style of jewelry. If you have a fancy bead on the top where there's a prong or some sort of flower, or if there's things that are causing the irritation or agitation, that could be it. Sometimes if it's getting caught on undergarments and getting pulled on, that can cause the irritation too. Or if you're being sexually active and it's not ready for that. So there's a couple variables you need to think about here. But generally do the wound wash spray once a day. Maybe the emu oil could help calm and soothe it, but the bump, it should be healed by now. Typically those are healed up in about a month to 2 months max. You're doing something to irritate it, find that source of irritation, and then it'll go away.
Laura says, hi, Scott. I've got a bump on my nose piercing that I got about 3 months ago. I'm doing everything right. The size of the bump fluctuates. It gets dry and it peels a lot, but it does not go away. What can I do?
I'm curious if you have a stud or if you have a ring in there. If you have a ring in there, the jewelry's rotating, pulling crusties in, maybe change to the stud until those bumps completely go away. Bumps do fluctuate on nostril piercings all the time. If you have a stud in there and if it's a nostril screw where it has a little twist on the inside, that might need to be adjusted so it fits tighter so it doesn't move around as much, which would cause the bump to happen. Or if the jewelry's too tight and it's pinching on there, it's constantly going to be causing that irritation. So you might need a longer one in there too. I would have to see the jewelry to see exactly what the problem is. The only other thing I would say is if you're catching towels on a regular basis, the bump will never go away. You need to be more careful with towels. That's always the number one source of the problem. And
if you hear the ring thing a lot, if you have a ring in there, that's probably the problem.
Yeah. I know you want the ring, but heal it with the stud. Otherwise, you're going to deal with this bump for months and months if it ever even goes away. So.
Zach Fee says, my amp line keeps falling out. What should I do?
Come get a re-pierce, Zach.
Yep.
We know Zach. He's a friend of the shop.
Got to keep them beads
Maybe
tight.
you should pierce it bigger, Zach. Maybe do a 4-gauge.
Ooh.
Go bigger, go home.
Hot Mess Mama says, hi, Scott. For nipple piercing, how long should I wait before swimming?
Generally, 1 month. After a month, you're healed up enough to where you don't need to worry about it. If you want, you can get Tegaderm patches, which is like a clear saran wrap you put over the top of your piercing, and that will protect it from germs and bacteria. But it is an open wound. Don't go swimming for a minimum of 1 month. If it's still irritated, crusties, you have like blood on there, you do need to wait longer. It is a swimming season.
Emily Sakuma says, my 4-month-old Dahlias are healing differently. The left one looks good, but the right one is still swelled. How can I heal the right one up faster? Is there anything we can do to?
There isn't. I mean, everyone's anatomy is different. That one side might be slightly thicker. It could be pierced at a slightly different angle. The way it's rubbing, there's a lot of variables, but just be patient. Oral piercings like this, where there's a lot of movement, sometimes they can be a little rough heal. The other factor is if the bars are how long would you say? A couple months?
4 months old.
4 months old. If you don't have downsized jewelry in there, put shorter posts in there so it doesn't move around, and that'll probably help quite a bit too.
Dancing Leaf confirming about the frenum earlier. It is indeed 2 frenums all the way at the bottom. It was a sharp pain, but went away real quick, and walking's been a bit weird, but it's going.
So those crusties, keep those crusties off. I had a friend who had some of these frenum piercings, and he had some old boxers, and the strings wrapped around those, and they kept pulling every time he walked. So make sure you have some comfortable undergarments. I couldn't believe he's like, this hurts so bad, Scott. I'm like, go check it out.
Amber Maddox, seems like more like she's asking the community than you, but it's sure if you have any input on it. I was wondering if anyone has ever did the Friday the 13th deals that I've seen at a couple piercing shops or / tattoo shops where they're advertising like $20 piercings. Wondering if that would be something worth it. Is that something to be afraid of, or is a deal like that okay?
Yes and no. You need to be careful. I've done them in the past here. I'm not 100% sure if we're going to be pulling off this next one here, but normally what I do is $13 piercing fee plus the cost of the jewelry. If it's straight up $13 piercing fees, the shop's probably losing money. It would cost them money to do that piercing if they were doing things properly. So if it's $13 for any piercing,
including jewelry, then that means
that's scary.
They're cutting corners.
To me, that's scary. It's low quality jewelry. Yeah, it costs money to do piercings. We can't just give these things away for free. You know, the tattoo thing, I know that a lot of times when they're doing those, they're really, really tiny tattoos. You know, sometimes they might charge a little extra for color, a little extra for this. Most shops are going to start at probably a $50 to $100 minimum. So a $13 tattoo, you're not getting much at all.
Now, I don't know as much about the tattoo industry, very little at all. When I went on, if I were to go on a deal day like that, am I getting the same high quality service I would expect on a normal day? Or is it kind of like a rush and a crazy day, and I'm maybe going to get a lower quality tattoo?
You're going to probably get a little lower quality tattoo. I hate saying it like that, but they have hundreds of people lined up, and it's like it's go as quick as they possibly can. When I've had them here, I still do the same appointment times. So you're getting the same quality, but like we called people, like hundreds of people. So sometimes like you come in on Friday the 13th, you might not be getting pierced till the 17th at my shop. You know, I'm not going to rush you through. I make sure everyone gets the same quality time, but I can't say that every shop's going to do that, because the more they get through there is the only way they're going to make their money.
Because you have to weigh that with profit, and you have to wonder if the shop
it's really difficult as a business owner to do this and make profit. Most of the time it's just getting your name out there kind of a deal and kind of giving back to the community.
Ariane says, I don't know if it's possible to get a forward-facing septral, but if it is, it would look awesome on you, Scott.
Thank you. You know what? I've actually talking to a friend of mine. His name's Carle, and he opened up a shop here in town. I think I'm going to have him do forward-facing mantises. So I know what you're saying. Like one right in the middle would be the septral, but I think I'm going to do 2 on each side so that way I can run little parallel rings. I just hit him up the other day. It's going to happen real soon, guys.
Super cool.
Yeah.
You gonna let me film it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, if he lets us film. Carle, if you're watching, let us film, please.
Right. It is his shop. It's his rules.
It is.
All right. Surprisingly, we get this question fairly often. Kobe wants to know, how do you convince your parents to let you get a septum? I'm 14.
This is one of the most popular questions we're getting lately. The best answer I can say is you're not going to have a visible scar. Okay. If your parents get sick of looking at it, get that circular barbell, flip it up so they don't have to be upset when they see you. It's the most hideable piercing. It doesn't leave a visible scar. It heals faster than all the rest, and it's not very painful. So in my opinion, if I was against piercings and I was going to let my kid have one piercing, that would be the one I would let him have because it's hideable.
And not going to leave any kind of a scar.
Exactly.
Makes perfect
it's not
sense.
like an eyebrow where like you take it out, you could have a couple marks, or same thing even with an earlobe.
Even a lobe, right?
This, I mean, yeah, go to a job interview, they're not going to stick a flashlight up your nose like, do you have any scars up in here? And so hope not anyways.
Hope not. You know, maybe pick a different job.
Pick a different job. That should be the sign right there. This is not the right job for me.
All right. Victor wants to know, how long should I wait to change out my Medusa piercing?
Okay. If you want to downsize your Medusa, because we put a longer post in there right away, Medusa's in the center of the upper lip. You probably want to wait generally about a month before you can downsize to a shorter post. If it's still really swollen, you don't have bars sticking out, you might need to wait longer. Now, if you're talking about just changing the top, make sure your piercing's all the way healed up first. Don't change this thing in and out during the healing process because that causes the irritation, which causes the bump, which causes a way longer healing process. So once you're done with crusties, you've downsized, and it's probably been at least by 2 or 3 months, then you're probably okay to start changing the top in and out.
Gritsu wants to know if it's normal for piercers to suggest piercing a Dahlia lower than the smile line. So fill us in if we don't know. What are we talking about?
A Dahlia, okay. Dahlias are going to be the corners of your mouth. I kind of play around with dots a little bit. Sometimes I'll put them a little higher than the smile line, sometimes a little lower. It depends on the shape of their mouth, but it can really affect your look. You know, you can look like you're sad. You can look a little happier. I mean, it's changing the smile or the frown of your face.
Okay.
It's kind of the same thing with like horizontal eyebrows. A slight angle up makes you look angry. This might be more calm. So it almost affects the way people perceive your mood.
Interesting.
So play around with your dots. If you don't like the placement and that's the only place you're going to put it, maybe talk to another piercer. You can go where you want. It's your look. You're wearing it. There's no dangers lower or higher. So it's just dangerous once you go further back.
So it's not really it's just a question of taste. Where do you want it to look?
Yes, yes.
Very cool. So if and people, that's an interesting question. Is it okay to second guess your piercer's dots? Is it okay to always second? I am never going to be mad at someone for saying, is this dot a little too high or too low, or shouldn't it be here? If you don't know, you have to ask. When someone asks me that question, I will say, no, we can't go lower because your gum line, or yes, it's all personal preference. But if you go lower or you go higher, you might have to wear a bigger ring or wear this and you want to wear a ring, so I will explain why I put the dot in that area. Now, if you have a piercing and like you're the professional, put it where you think, no, you're wearing it. You wouldn't want me to dress you. You pick out your clothes, it's the same thing with your piercing. Where do you want them to be? Interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting. So it's okay to question that. Don't just necessarily go with the flow.
Most people don't go to their hairdresser and say, you're the professional, do what you need to do.
I bet some people do, though.
There are some people. I'd be one of those. That's fine.
I'd be one of those. It'd be super easy for them to make the decision about what they were going to do.
So.
All right.
Wait, what are you saying? Is that a balding joke?
No, I don't think you have hair on your head. Let me check the camera. No.
Okay.
All right. The next question comes from Brendan Brock. Have you ever wanted to invent your own piercing? Does it work like that?
Yeah, yes and no. I always thought it'd be kind of cool to kind of invent it, but at the same time, most piercings are already done.
Right.
If there's a reason why, okay, like let's talk about the snake eye piercing. Okay, it's the newer piercing. It's really, really popular and it's really dangerous. Snake eyes is like going horizontal through the tip of the tongue. You're going to take off all the enamel off your teeth. You're going to get gum erosion. Your teeth can fall out. It's just a dangerous, bad piercing. And it's popular because it's new. I would love to invent a new piercing, but it's probably not around for a reason, you know?
Right.
You know, it's that would be it. I would love to have a piercing named after me or whatever, but I don't think there's really much left.
20, 30 years ago, people were getting to name piercings as they invented them, correct?
Correct. I used to work with Jessica Bornson. She's the one who kind of did the gestrum. She may not have been the first person to do it, but she was named after. She did it, the vertical upper lip labret. And
so it's called a gestrum because Jessica made it. That's fun.
It's great. It's great. And I got to pierce Jessica's gestrum.
That's super cool.
Such an honor.
It's very meta.
So cool. Yeah.
But I get what you're saying, that there's no extra folds that no one has found to poke holes in now. And
no, if you came in and you had an extra fold on your cheek or something, or an extra fold on, you might have something original that no one else has. Sure, you can name it if you want, because no one else is going to claim it because no one else really has it. That's about as far as you could really go, though, I think.
Interesting.
Good question.
Fun one, Brendan. We like that. Emily Roth wants to know about ear piercings and motorcycle helmet wearing, because it seems like helixes would just be out of the question.
It can be done. I do have one client who comes in and has all these crazy ear, and it's all she does is ride motorcycle. And I try to warn her every time. She's like, I know. The issue is sometimes she loses the beads because the pressure, like putting the helmet on every single time. So most of the time it causes problems. Piercing is a timing game. Find the best time in your life where it works for you. If you live in a climate where there's winter and you don't ride 6 months out of the year, as soon as you put your motorcycle away, that's when you should be getting your helix pierced to give you the largest window of non-irritating time to heal it up.
Excellent. Yeah. So then by next season, you get it in and out of that helmet without...
Motorcycle helmets do cause problems with ear piercings. Glasses can cause problems with bridge piercings. Braces cause problem with lip piercings. So it's find the right time to make it work.
Madison is so happy to have found you. She just got her septum done back in early March. We've got slight soreness and crusties still, and while soaking it, it's fallen out. Is it healing correctly? Does it sound like?
Falling out. I'm guessing you might have a retainer in there, which is just kind of like that little U-shaped piece of jewelry, and that should be flipped up all the time. If you have the retainer and it's pointing down so you can kind of show it off, those just turn sideways and they fall out. So keep it flipped up if you have the retainer. The falling out thing, I really am not sure what other style of jewelry you would have, unless you have a circular barbell and the beads come unthreaded. Okay. Sometimes that happens because there's a lot of talking and eating, so like the beads will loosen up. If this is happening, put a small dab of toothpaste on a toothpick, rub that onto your threads, and you can screw that in, and that'll act like a Loctite and seal it in so it doesn't fall out for you. Yeah, you don't want your jewelry falling out. These do take 6 to 8 weeks to heal, and crusties happen for a while. Keep the crusties off and it'll heal a lot nicer.
So yeah, if this only happened in March, the soreness and the crusties are pretty normal. We're just in the middle of the process.
Mm-hmm. A lot of times, like the soreness is like from the crusties getting pulled in. But I know a lot of times with a new fresh piercing, if you kind of push up on your nose like that or down, you will feel a sharp pinch. But that typically goes away after like a week or two.
Is it okay to wear silver in helix piercings?
No.
Why?
Silver is actually a dangerous metal to wear inside, especially fresh piercings, because it creates something called silver salts once silver is exposed to the bloodstream. Now, the silver salts can be very toxic to the body and will just cause a lot of damage over time. I'm not sure the exact reason. I've just been told over and over.
Medical professionals tell you don't
do it. Now, here's the other factor. If you have sterling silver earrings or silver earrings and you notice it's kind of getting black around that area, that is oxidizing and that is slowly tattooing your ear. So you might have seen people where they have the big black ring around their piercing hole. That's from wearing silver jewelry and not keeping it polished. If you have a fully healed piercing, you can wear silver jewelry, but you have to make sure it polishes and it's not tarnishing.
So you're saying that tarnish will come off and maybe never go away? It
seeps into the skin. You have to go to a tattoo and have it tattoo removal place and have it laser removed.
Wow. Or you'll just always have that little black dot.
Yes. Quality jewelry
and well polished silver. Mm-hmm. If that's just your color, then keep it clean.
Yeah.
All right. Q Moon P says, hi, Scott. Since lip piercings like the vertical philtrum go through muscles, can they even heal properly / not do lasting damage when there's that much muscle movement involved?
Absolutely. With most piercings like this, most of them are pretty superficial, but there is some muscle tissue we do go through. You're healing that fistula, which is a tube of scar tissue. So a lot of you might have felt your ears. You can feel like that bump inside there. That is that tuba scar tissue. Same thing's going to happen, and it's going to kind of create that barrier and protect other things. So the muscle tissue might flex a little bit, but our bodies are pretty accommodating and we'll kind of adjust to it. So they do fully heal. I've had my lip pierced since 94, I think, and I haven't had it in years, and it still slides right in. So it's fully healed and will not close.
And specifically vertical philtrums, you've definitely seen them fully healed and happy.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. All right. So Dirty has a question. How many people do you turn down for a septum due to their anatomy? Do a lot of people not have the nose for it?
It's really, really low. Someone who's had nose reconstructive surgery might not have a proper septum, then be going through all the scar tissue and cartilage. It's still pierceable. It's just going to hurt a lot. I have turned down 1 or 2 people, believe it or not, because of small nostrils. I couldn't really even get a receiving tube in there to, I don't know how. I remember.
So the nose was too small.
It was so small, I couldn't even fit anything in there. And I think the other thing was they had to have it hidden for work. And I was like, I can't even if we put a retainer in there, it was still too small to flip the retainer up. I'm like, there's nothing I can do.
Wow.
It was a tiny
custom
nostril.
Jewelry or something.
Really, really rare. Oh, the other factor would be is if you had a broken nose and your nose is really crooked off to the side, yes, you can get it pierced. But if your nose is at this angle, the ring's going to be further off your lip, and people are attracted to the jewelry, and they're going to see how far your ring is off your lip, and it's going to more accentuate how crooked your nose is. So if it's going to make it look more, I will say something, as uncomfortable as it is.
Interesting. If you think it's not going to be an attractive
I don't think it's going
piercing.
to be. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I mean, that's kind of what we're trusting you for.
Yeah.
You know? Andrea says, hey, Scott, I'm struggling with a nostril. It's been pierced with a nostril screw, but I have bumps on the inside and outside. My piercer suggested peroxide and changed to a longer L-shaped jewelry. We're 3 months in. So first of all, I know you're not going to like the peroxide thing.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of peroxide at all. Peroxide, alcohol, things like this, they're all made for cuts and scrapes. If you read the bottle, it says not made for puncture wounds. And this is the best example of a puncture wound I can think of. Peroxide, as far as I understand, generally minimizes scarring, and a fistula is a tube of scar tissue. So if you're using that on a fresh piercing, trying to heal it, you're keeping it raw and you're not allowing it to heal. So I would switch over to the wound wash spray only. Once a day, just spray the outside and inside, wipe off crusties with a paper towel. Make sure you're not using Q-tips, cotton balls, because the cotton fibers can wrap around there, and that turns into a bacteria trap and causes more issues as well. If your post is getting sucked in and it's too tight, you need a longer post. Maybe you should change to a threadless piece of jewelry.
It's a screw, I think. We have a long L-shaped nostril screw in there now.
Change to a threadless piece instead of the nostril screw. A nostril screw is where the pin and there's a little twist, or nostril L is just that in a straight bend. But there's a lot more movement with the nostril L or the nostril screw. So maybe a threadless piece might help. And a lot of nostril screws are steel, and almost all the threadless stuff is going to be titanium. So you'd be upgrading to less movement and a higher quality metal.
So in general, that should help.
Yes. And also with bumps, maybe emu oil can help calm down the bumps, but peroxide, alcohol, stay away from that.
Yeah, they don't even recommend peroxide on wounds anymore. It's such an aggressive debridement that they think it will take longer to heal if you use peroxide.
Correct. Yeah. Most hospitals are really staying away from that stuff. Yeah.
Next up, we have Eli Vasquez says, hi, I got a Labret piercing not long ago, and I came to notice it's a little uneven. I was going to stretch it to an 8. Will stretching it even it out or make it worse?
Generally, it's going to stay about the same. It's probably not going to even it out. It's pretty rare you can control the direction of your stretch. If your piercing's here, the stretch goes nice and evenly all the way around. So if it's off-centered, it's going to stay off-centered. And sometimes the bigger hole will actually accentuate it a little bit because, granted, it's going further to your left as well as to your right. So it's going to, it probably would make it worse.
So sometimes it's worse.
If it really bothers you and it's not fully healed up and it's still closable, take it out and start over. And you can even start at a larger size if you want to stretch up to that size. So
very cool. People don't really realize that, but you're going to wear this for years. It might just be worth it to start over and get it right.
It's really frustrating to hear that. But if it's not centered and it bothers you now, it's not going to get better.
Yeah, you're not going to feel better about that next year.
Whatever. Get it done right. Get it done right.
Makes a lot of sense. Susan says, I have a Helix piercing that was done in August of 21, and it's still very sore. It's up very high, and it has a butterfly backing. The earring is 14 karat gold and diamond. Is it just going to take time, or is there something wrong?
Yes, there's something wrong. It's probably the jewelry. You say you have 14 karat gold, and most jewelry that is 14 karat gold with a butterfly back is going to have the 14K stamp on the wearing surface. So if you were to take your earring out, you're going to see not a smooth surface, but a stamp, which is basically like you just created that smooth bar into a file. So that could be a huge source of the problem. The other part is butterfly backs don't give room for swelling. So maybe put something in more comfortable to sleep in, like a flat disc on the back, and where it's titanium, so you're gonna be able to sleep on it. It's not gonna house all the bacteria inside that butterfly back.
So in a case like this, do you think maybe switching jewelry, like just trying a different bar of some sort,
jewelry, yes.
Let it heal that way?
And then if you have the butterfly back in there, I'm guessing you probably got pierced with a piercing gun. Because those fit inside piercing guns, and most piercers don't use butterfly back earrings. So if you had a piercing gun up in your cartilage, that kind of spider webs and shatters the cartilage. So not only you're doing a small hole, but you damage the whole upper part. So you're healing a lot more than just actual piercing.
Going to cause more soreness. So yeah, and then once it's healed up, there's no problem with putting this 14 karat gold piece back in if it doesn't cause more.
As long as it's all healed up, and as long as that 14K stamp isn't on the wearing surface. I wish jewelry manufacturers would stop doing this.
Seems silly.
Yeah.
A little bit more. It tangles. The butterfly back gets tangled on her hair and catches on her mask also, and they also roll over and sleep on it by accident. So there's a good chance that's what's going on with
change
Susan.
the jewelry to a Labret style jewelry, and it's not going to get caught near as much. A lot more comfortable to sleep on, and it'll probably solve all your problems.
All right, so try some different jewelry, Susan. Get that thing healed up, and then switch back.
And wound wash spray if you're not using it. A sterile saline solution, you spray in the front and back, wipes off crusties, and that's all you need to do to clean it.
Sarah says, love your videos. Thank you,
Thanks,
Scott,
Sarah.
for everything.
You're very welcome. Thanks for tuning in today.
Madison, who we were talking to about the septum piercing, also notices that flipping the retainer up makes it seem more sore. It makes her nose more sore.
Okay.
Does that seem normal?
Sometimes it does, because septum retainer, can you go to the drawing board here?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is what a septum retainer looks like. Sometimes they're like this. Sometimes they're like this. When you're trying to flip this up inside your nose, sometimes your septum, the cartilage might be wider up here than the actual gap. So you might need to have the jewelry opened up a little tiny bit. So it's more like this bottom one here that I just drew. So go on to see your piercer. You should be able to flip it up. That's 100% why it's falling out. You should be able to flip it up and have that comfortable. They can take a ring opening pliers, and they can probably put a retainer in first, open it up a little bit so it is comfortable when it's up inside your nose.
So it just need to be resized maybe. It's just not quite right
now,
for her
the
nose.
other question I would have for you is, Madison, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did it hurt really bad when you got it pierced? Because if they pierced through all the cartilage and it's too low or too high, that could be why it's so sore and having such a rough time. It should not have been very painful. It makes your eyes water a lot, but if it seemed like they really had to push it and kind of break through, they probably hit all the cartilage, and that's why you're having such a rough time too.
Now, that's not a deal breaker, is it? It just means a longer heel?
A longer, rougher heel. But if it's through all the thick stuff, that's part of the reason why it's not moving around and sitting as comfortable.
That makes sense. It wouldn't be free to wiggle.
Yep. So
Rebecca B wants to know if having an overbite disqualifies them from being a candidate for a Labret piercing with a ring. They're worried that the ring might rub against their top teeth. Because oral damage is already a thing. Is that made worse if you have an overbite?
I don't know. Now, here's the deal. Let's go back to the drawing board here. So if we have a lip that's coming out, typically I'm going to kind of go a little bit of an angle down like this. So you have the ball there, and then it's the disc. That way, when you put the ring in, most of it's going to be on the outside of the lip like that. Instead of, the ring shouldn't go in more. It should be more on the outside.
Okay.
Trying to go perpendicular. It should almost hug the inside of the lip right here. So it shouldn't be too bad. I would have to physically see it in order to know if it would be a good idea to wear the ring or not. I don't think it would be a problem.
It doesn't seem like, because the overbite is your jaw's relationship to each other. It doesn't seem like it affects your lips distance from your teeth.
It just kind of depends on where
your
teeth rest against the lip or the,
Right.
If it's going to be touching your teeth, yeah, that's a problem. But if it's not touching the teeth, not a big deal at all.
So that's what it comes down to is could you get it pierced without touching your teeth?
Yes.
Then it's okay.
Yes.
All right. Gabby Gibson says, well, it's not a complete question, but there's a learning opportunity here. We're talking about needing a ring and want to know what size you recommend. There is more than one size ring, and doesn't that depend on the person?
Mm-hmm. Are we talking about for a nostril?
I don't have any idea.
Yeah, there's many ring sizes, just like there is pants sizes and shirt sizes. You find the size that fits you. A lot of people don't understand how to size or how to even figure that out. So if that is the case, you need to go talk to your piercer. There's no such thing as a one size fits. Well, maybe it's going to be huge. But for it to fit properly, go see your piercer and they will be able to help you out. Now, sometimes piercers will give you an aftercare sheet and write down the jewelry size on the back, and it's like, oh, I'm wearing a 3/8 inch stud. I need to downsize it sticking out this much. You can do the math and figure it out. But if you don't know the original size you're wearing, how to measure the height.
Right. Because there's more than one measurement too. It's the thickness of the metal and then also the size of the ring, correct? So you have to know all these different factors.
Gauge and the length or the diameter.
So have someone that's a piercer help you figure that out, Gabby.
It's way better that way. Yeah.
Doggy Loser 1 says, hey, Scott, I got my septum pierced about 2 months ago, and I want to stretch my septum.
Good.
How long do you recommend I wait?
I'll give it another month. Generally, the septum piercing is about 6 to 8 weeks to heal up. But once you're healed, then it needs to calm down and relax. So generally, that's why I say 3 months would be about the earliest you should start stretching. If you have crusties on there, it's sore, irritated, any of the above, wait longer.
BB's thinking about Helix piercing. Super painful. Do you recommend it?
I would ask, I'm curious if you have other piercings. No, it's not that painful, but I'll be honest, it sucks to heal up because when you're sleeping on that side, like you're hit it every single time you lay your head down on the pillow. Sometimes cartilage piercings, helixes like this can take 6 months to a year to heal. So as long as you're willing to go up with the whole healing process, that's the bigger factor. The actual piercing itself, most shots of doctors hurt more than piercings do, in my opinion. It's right around the same. It's the same needle. It's a little pinch and it's over. So
it's that healing up part.
It's the aftercare that
sleeping on a sore ear. Correct. You don't think about that.
Correct.
Joanna says, Scott, because of your videos, I have a couple more piercings and they're healing wonderful. Thank you for your work and keep making videos. Greetings from Poland.
Awesome. Thanks, Joanna.
Foggy, about saunas, some piercers here in Finland usually tell people to avoid them for a month, just like swimming. Apparently, the sweating is supposed to cause problems, is what their piercers are telling them there in Finland, that if they get in the sauna and sweat into their own piercing, that would be a negative.
Your own bodily fluids like that are totally safe. It's not a big deal. It's other people's. So if you're in the sauna all rubbing up against other people, rubbing your piercing against other people's sweat, yeah, that's gross. That will cause a problem. But your own sweat is not an issue. A lot of times what we're trying to do is when we're cleaning our piercings is we're doing like these sea salt soaks or the sterile saline, which our body's made up of salt water. So your sweat is just like doing a wound wash spray.
It shouldn't contain anything you don't already have.
No, you're not going to give yourself anything new. Yeah. Most that's going to happen is it would soften the crusties up and you just want to wipe them off afterwards. I don't know why they would say, because I mean,
it makes it because in Finland, like saunas are very popular. I believe it's a more common thing there. So it would be something that they would deal with more often than we do.
People don't use like not bath. We're talking sauna where it's just a steam room. That's what yeah. Okay.
Well, that's very interesting, Foggy. Thank you for sharing that information from Finland. We're not sure why they say that, but it seems like you should be okay.
I don't know why that would be. Never heard that before. I'm going to look more into it. I'm really curious now.
Excellent.
But I don't see any reason why it would be bad other than the heating up the metal.
City says, we got both nostrils pierced a week ago and the piercer didn't quite bend the ring enough where the bead can stay fully in and it keeps falling out. Can I change this soon or should I leave it alone? What are we talking about? Are we talking about a threadless piece of jewelry?
No, they're talking about a captive bead ring in the nostril. So they got their noses pierced with rings. The beads are held in by pressure. So the ring is like a spring. The bead, you open the ring up and then it pinches on the bead. So it's held in by pressure. I don't think anyone should ever get pierced with a ring in a nostril. It's going to be nothing but problems. In my opinion, yeah, you should change. And I would say change to the stud. You're going to be healed in a half the time, half the problems. And then once you're healed up, you can change to the ring more comfortably. And what I like to do with the rings is doing like a clicker or a seam ring. That's basically where the ring is solid and it doesn't have the bead, because the jewelry's going to rotate back and forth. And I'm sure you've already noticed how frustrating it is where they're not looking straight and the beads are in different spots. Imagine not having the beads and not have to worry about being straight. That's why I like to wait till it's healed all the way up to go to a seam ring or a clicker. And that is the ultimate option. If you're not changing it out, you need the bead in there because that ring will rotate, go into the middle, your skin closes up in the middle, you just lost your piercing. It's that fast. So go see your piercer, have them either change it out to studs or have them put that bead in tighter.
But you do recommend the studs will be a faster heal?
For sure. Every day and all day long.
All right, City, that's our recommendation. Laura, again, with the nose bump, I have a Labret in there. It was 10 millimeters long, and I've just switched it to 9 millimeters to help it move less. Mm-hmm. I can't fit anything shorter in there while the bump is there without it squeezing on the bump.
Good. That's the right size jewelry. Patience. Chances are you're probably sleeping on it, catching towels on it or shirts. Sometimes it's the minimal amount of irritation that causes those bumps, and then they're a pain in the butt to get rid of. Again, maybe the emu oil might calm it down and help get you back to normal. It does take time. One thing I like to tell people with bumps is you don't see a difference from a day-to-day looking in the mirror. So use your camera phone, take a picture, a week later, take another picture, a week later, take another picture. You should see progress with it getting better. If it's not getting better, go talk to your piercer and see if there's something different you can do. See if it's a problem with the jewelry. Maybe it's lifestyle. Maybe you're working in a factory where chemicals and stuff are getting in there. It could be the soaps. It could be makeup. It could be your dog licking it, trying to help you heal it up. There's so many factors.
Miranda with the problem Doth in December, giving us an update. She sleeps with a donut pillow, and the guy used a clicker when he pierced it.
Okay.
I also clean it properly, and the ring doesn't turn. Not sure if it's the ring. He said the jewelry will irritate more. So pierced with a clicker, do you recommend, should that?
I'm hoping you can see the gaps or the seams. If you can't see the gaps or the seams because your jewelry's not moving, that clicker, that little seam or gap went inside your piercing and started closing up on it. Soak your ear really, really well for a good 5-10 minutes. You need to move it and get that seam or gap out of there. I don't pierce with clickers or seam rings for this reason. Rings with beads are the better way to start because it doesn't allow that seam or the gap to get inside. If it's stuck, you have to get it out. But soak your ear.
Sydney wants to know what websites you recommend for buying jewelry from, and will you eventually have a site of your own that we can buy safe and reliable jewelry from?
I'm so sorry, guys. We are trying so hard to get everything together here to get our website. We will have a website with jewelry. We'll have a website with shirts and merchandise and stickers, and we got all kinds of new ideas.
We're rounding
you
third.
Haven't even seen. I'm inventing stuff as we go, but we can't keep up with it. So, even custom jewelry boxes for body jewelry.
All kinds.
What do you guys think of that? Would you guys be interested? I want certain plug sizes or certain for clickers or a place to put your hangers to display fancy jewelry. It's all ideas we have.
So we're working on it, Sydney. We'll be able to get back to you with some great news. One of these live streams coming up.
I don't really trust many sites whatsoever that sell body jewelry to the public. Most of the places seem to lie, in my opinion. They say, oh, it's surgical steel, but it comes in red and all these other colors. Well, surgical steel doesn't come in colors. There's a lot of factors. Sizes are wrong. The polish is wrong. Sometimes the pictures are wrong. So we're trying to come up with a reliable website you guys can use.
Ashlyn says, hi, Scott. Love your videos. I was debating on whether or not to get an industrial or a Doth, and I was wondering which one would be an easier heal.
Doth.
Straight up. No question.
That's an easy question. Yeah, Doth is way easier as long as you're not wearing earphones, headsets, stethoscopes that go in your ear. The industrial piercing is kind of stuck in one position. So if you're sleeping on it, your ear's twisting and contorting, you're going to get bumps. The industrial piercing is probably 6 months to a year minimum to heal. The Doth piercing could be healed as soon as 4 to 6 months. And it's inside the ear, so you can sleep on it much sooner without causing damage.
Dave Wainwright says, I had a 5/16 Prince Albert and I want to go bigger, but I'm worried it might rip out. Could I get a piercing to give it more room?
Are you saying you stretched it to a 5/16 or it's only 5/16 deep? Because that means it's on the very tip.
Well, since we're saying want to go bigger, we're probably talking 5/16 thickness. I would imagine that we stretched to a 5/16.
Gauge your diameter. Clarify with us. Let us know as far as that goes. If you're only wearing a 5/16 ring in there, you're not going to be able to stretch without it kind of ripping and coming through the tip. That means you're pierced way too shallow. If you stretched it up to a 5/16, which is that a 0 gauge roughly? I think it's about a 0 gauge. Yeah.
Yeah. Third of an inch.
Yeah. So then I have heard of people getting like amplangs below to help support the weight of the larger ring inside that piercing if it seems like it's getting thin. It can be done, but I would say maybe look into getting titanium jewelry, something more lightweight if you need more support.
Reality Check says, hi, Scott.
Hey.
Sydney Esparza says, any tips on how to brush your teeth with a vertical labret piercing? I'm going to get it done on this Saturday, and any tips will help.
Like normal, just be careful. I've had almost all the different oral piercings. You learn to adjust and adapt as you go. Now, the first week or so, when you're like going towards the front, a vertical, it's going to get bumped. It's going to get a little tender. You just need to be more gentle. After what, a week or so, you'll be right back into full motion. It's not a big deal. It's more psychological than it is physical.
Anna W says, I had a septum, and when I took it out, I don't have any mark left. I do regret my stretched ears, though, because they didn't fully shrink down and small earrings will fall through. So it is important to think about the future. Like you were saying earlier, septum leaving no scars versus a stretched ear leaving possibly an unrecoverable scar.
Correct.
Think that stuff out.
Now, I do also want to say that there's a possibility with Microdermal might work for something like this because Microdermal is a scar tissue remover. And if you stretched your ears and there's a bunch of scarring in there, that scarring is preventing everything from going back to normal. So if you use Microdermal, you might be able to break down the scar tissue, get things to relax, and it might shrink up more.
Nice. So that's a good tip there for you, Anna. Massage those lobes and maybe rub some Microdermal skin.
No guarantee on that one, but there's a good chance that might help shrink it up a little bit more. And definitely massaging breaks down that scar tissue and allows it to shrink up better.
Ruth had a bump and has switched the jewelry to a labret, but there's no improvement yet. Any suggestions for what we can do with that bump, or how long should we expect to wait with a new labret in before we're going to see a difference?
Sometimes as little as a week, sometimes it's several weeks. Again, take pictures and kind of reference it. Make sure you're not playing with it. I know labrets are so easy to kind of bite down with your teeth and kind of play with it. And if it's being irritated all day long, the bump will never go away. So make sure it's not being irritated by anything else. I also know sometimes with alcohol, if you're drinking alcohol with oral piercings, it numbs your mouth and you don't realize you're doing damage there. So if you're a drinker, be careful you're not playing with it while you're drinking too. I always forget to mention that, but that's always a factor.
People don't realize.
Yeah.
Reality Check has had a vertical labret twice for 5 years and did bad with snake bites because their teeth caught on the back.
Yep.
Wouldn't Ashley be a bad choice for the same reasons?
It's a different piercing. Ashley's can get caught on the teeth. And Ashley's kind of like a labret, but higher up through the colorful part of the lip, right through the center. So it is going to be rubbing in there, but at the same time, the disc is closer to the lip as opposed to closer to the teeth on this one. So with the right size jewelry, it probably could help, but it's still a possibility.
Very cool. Sydney says, Jared, do you plan on getting any piercings soon? Well, I have my labret pierced, and Scott keeps threatening to do my septum on camera one of these days. So I'm sure it'll happen.
Once we get our GoPros set up in that room, Jared will be the first one we're stabbing.
Boom. Ready. Yeah, we're going to start filming piercings, also adding some more content like that. If you guys want to see some actual live or not live, but real live action type piercings.
Yes. Just bought a bunch more GoPros, so we'll be doing this soon.
Amazonia says, what about tongue piercings? Where should it be positioned? How do you make that decision?
All right. So the tongue has to be back far enough where it's not rubbing up against your gums or your teeth. So generally about a ½ inch, maybe 5/8 of an inch back from the tip of the tongue. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind is your tongue is kind of like an L like this when it's inside your mouth. Okay. Now, once you stick your tongue out, that L straightens out and it seems like you have more room in the back to pierce through, but you don't, because then you'd have to have a curved bar in there. So what I typically do is make sure I mark it. And when they lift their tongue up, you keep your tongue in the mouth and you lift it up, and you'll be able to see where that pocket is, and you'll be able to determine how far back you can actually go. There is a too far back though, so make sure you only go in that right spot. Everyone, when they first look at my tongue piercing, is like, oh, it looks like it's too close to the tip. Everyone thinks that the first time, and then once you get it in your mouth, that's where it's supposed to be. So about 5/8 of an inch back from the tip, and in the center or through the connective tissue, not through the muscle. Sometimes the connective tissue is a little off to the left or the right, and you got to have your tongue stuck all the way out to see where that center line is.
See, there's more to this than you realize. This is why we don't pierce ourselves in the bathroom mirror. All right. Ruth Adams got a flat done last month with a 1.6 Labret. Will it be okay to downsize to a 1.2 Labret? So we're talking lengths. How long do we wait on that for a downsize?
Generally about a month or so, as long as the swelling's gone down and there's post sticking out. I don't know how much post is sticking out. So every person has different thicknesses. So I would have to see. Yeah.
Now, and will the swelling on your flat be basically gone after that first month, or are you still slightly swollen even though you feel good?
A little tiny bit. You'll see a little bit of a raise, but generally it's not that big of a difference where you can downsize to the right size at that point.
So Ruth should be okay after a month to go ahead and hit that downsize.
I can't guarantee that 1.2 would fit though.
Right. It depends on your anatomy specifically. Yep. It's hard to agree with a number. All right. Hi, I've been thinking about getting my second lobes, but my helix is still healing. I've had it for 6 months and it's doing okay. Am I okay to go get my seconds pierced?
Absolutely. Earlobes are generally pretty quick healers, generally about a month, maybe 2 months. The cartilage can take 6 months to a year to fully heal. So that is to be expected. The only thing I like to tell people is you don't like to have more than 4 or 5 piercings healing at once. Your immune system starts weakening up and it takes longer for piercings to heal. If you just want lobes and it's going to be the second and third piercing, fully support it.
What is the weirdest thing you have ever seen or done as a piercer? That's such a general question.
The weirdest thing I've ever seen or done. 2 things come to mind. Number one, a friend of mine came in and he got all 4 of his nipples pierced. So He took his shirt off and he had an extra set of nipples. We pierced those. That's pretty weird. You don't see that every day.
That is weird.
And another guy came in, a good friend of mine. He had a bunch of piercings on his face, and it said his work is not allowing him to have any more facial piercings. He already has his nipples. He already has his belly button. He's like, can we pierce my armpits? I know. That's why I was like, what? Right. So it's just the skin here, and we did like little surface bars on the outside. So yeah, that kind of takes the cake too.
So what you're saying is that guy earlier was right, and you have invented a piercing?
I'm sure I'm not. Maybe. I don't condone. I don't want my name on armpit piercing.
No, that's sorry. We're going to call it the Scott.
The Scott piercing.
The Scott. It's the best smelling piercing.
Don't do it, people.
Is it okay to wear gold-plated sterling silver in cartilage piercings? Is there a problem with gold plating?
In a healed piercing, it's totally safe. I don't ever start anyone with plated jewelry. Sometimes the chemicals that they use to bond can be released when it kind of breaks down. Plus, the plating leaves like a little chip, and you're looking for a nice smooth surface. So I only suggest plated jewelry in healed piercings only. That's why when you get pierced with gold here, it's all solid gold.
Reality Check got a Navel 30 years ago, so they were in at the ground floor too.
Right on. Yeah, I had mine done about 30 years ago too.
See, the time flies.
Yeah, 28 years ago.
28 years. Jamie Willard says, I recently got a vertical industrial about 2 weeks ago, and it's healing quite quickly. When would you suggest downsizing?
I'm impressed if it feels like it's healing already. That is fantastic news. A vertical industrial is like the bar. It's either from the helix down to like the conch, the helix to lobe, or a conch to conch. It's kind of one of those combinations. They want to downsize or change?
We want to downsize it.
Downsize. If it's not causing problems, generally a month and a half, 2 months, you can downsize if you're done with the swelling.
We have a question about female genital piercings. If you don't have the appropriate anatomy for clitoral piercings, what other ones are possible? Are there other ones that you could get?
I'm going to suggest you go to my not the What Should I Get Pierced, but the whole truths, because I have a genital piercing section. And if you go into our playlist area, I kind of separated, I made them a little easier to look through so you can see all the different genital piercings we have. There's a bunch. You have the VCH of vertical clitoral hood, the horizontal clitoral hood. You have the Christina, inner labias, outer labias, fourchette. And those are some of the more common or basic ones. There's some deeper ones like triangle piercings,
pubic piercing.
Pubic's more kind of like the Christina though. So yeah. So there's a couple of them you could get and combinations of.
Plenty of options.
Yes.
I've seen piercings having a wave now because they've been brought up to a luxury piercing level of jewelry. What do you see as like the next piercing trend?
Ooh, predictions.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Piercing seems super popular right now.
Yeah. You know, I don't know, because if you would have told me 20 years ago that half the piercings I was going to be doing today would be septums, I wouldn't have believed you, because 20, 25 years ago, I would do one septum piercing a year. It was so rare. Same thing with bridge piercings. I do bridge piercings on a regular, not as much as septums, but I never thought it would be popular. I don't know what's going to be popular next.
You just never know.
I don't know.
Just roll with it.
The nose is so popular. I think we're going to stick with that. I think mantises are going to get way more popular.
Chains seem like they're blowing up.
Yeah. They've been going for years, but they keep getting stronger. So I'm saying we're sticking with the nose. The nose is where the popularity is going to be. It's going to be septum, like stacking, like a bunch of clickers in there, more mantises. Yeah, decorated noses.
Decorated noses. That's the word from Scott.
Yes.
Isabel says, hello, Scott. Nice to see you live.
Hi.
Question, is it possible to use earbuds while and after healing a double doth?
No. After healing it, yes. If you're wearing earbuds during a doth piercing, it's going to contort tissue. You're going to have massive bumps for a long, long time. I've had friends who have done this and they said, oh, I put in the soft earbuds or the foam ones or this, because it doesn't, but they always end up with bumps. So wait till it's healed, then change to the earbuds. In the meantime, you might need to use the over-the-ear earphones.
Q Moon P says, thank you for responding to my question, Scott. Your videos and friendly presence are awesome.
Well, awesome. I'm glad you tuned in today, and thanks for being part of our community.
The Real Deal says, I'm 61 and have gotten 13 piercings in the past 9 months, including 7 cartilage piercings. Things are healing well and no bumps, only a bit of crusties. Is it too soon to get my doth pierced?
It's a lot of piercings. It kind of depends on what other piercings you've had and if most of them have healed up. Generally, I don't like more than 4 or 5 piercings healing at once because your immune system gets weak and you're more prone to infections and longer healing processes. If you're this into piercings, I don't know if you do it already, but multivitamins is a great idea, especially things with zinc supplements, because zinc is almost like steroids for your immune system and helps boost up the healing process. So that's what I would suggest. If everything seems healed, you're probably okay. But if it doesn't, don't push your luck, because all your piercings can act up and get flare up and bumps. And that's when we dislike piercings.
Anon is agreeing with you here and saying, Isabel, I have a doth, and while it's technically feasible to wear the earbud, depending on the ear, I find the pressure that the bud pushes or torques on the rings to not feel the greatest. So another
absolutely. Thanks for tuning in on that one. Yeah, it's so true. And it's like, it doesn't hurt though. It doesn't hurt until the bumps arise. So
we're all doing great. Nice to see you, Becky. Next question we have. Thank you, Scott. Pro Piercer here, and your information, the information you provide is the Bible around our shop. Thanks for all the good answers.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm really honored to be part of your shop like that.
That's super cool.
That's pretty cool.
Hamilton Crockett says, hello, Scott. I wanted to get a tongue web, but when I reached out to a couple of reputable piercers, they do not perform this piercing. Mm-hmm. Why would someone not do this piercing?
I personally don't know. I will say they're difficult piercings to do.
Like from a physical standpoint on the piercer, it's tough for you to get it right.
I use tools to hang onto the jewelry to kind of feed stuff in their mouth. You can't fit my fingers all the way inside someone, these are big hands.
Right.
So it's technically a difficult piercing to do. Dangerous? I don't think it is. It's no dangerous than a normal tongue piercing, where if the beads came unthreaded, you bit down on the beads, you're going to chip or damage your teeth. It's not the same damaging as a smiley or a frowny would be, which are the webs in between your gums and your lip. the top and bottom of your lip. That can cause gum erosion, enamel erosion, just a lot of damage. But for that tongue web on the underside, it shouldn't cause damage. Worst case scenario, it just rejects and grows out. But yeah, so I don't know why they wouldn't do it. It might be comfort level. You might want to even ask them if they even do tongue piercings, because a lot of piercers don't even like to do tongue piercings.
That's what I was going to say. I think I've heard piercers in the past say that they kind of find oral piercings gross and they prefer not to put their fingers in other people's mouths. Could that be anything to do with it? That just a personal preference on the part of a piercer? Or
but yet they're doing genital piercings.
That's very strange. That's a good point.
Well, I mean, here's the thing too. It's like everything can be dangerous. There is a risk involved with piercings. Anything can get infected. Any bead could come off and you could bite or chip your teeth. Anyone who gets in a car could get in a car accident. Should we stop driving cars?
Right. I see what you're saying. Just mitigate the risk.
You got to, figure out what's going to work best for you. If you're going to be driving 300 miles an hour on a crotch rocket every day, it's a higher risk than a normal car. That's the Smiley compared to a tongue frenum. You know?
Right.
Analogies. I love them.
Got to do it.
Yes.
So as far as you're concerned, it is a safe piercing. It's just different piercers might have preferences.
That's pretty much it.
Cool.
What they're comfortable with. If a piercer is not comfortable doing something, I don't want them piercing that on me. I want them to be fully confident and comfortable. And honesty is the best policy. If I say, I don't think I can pull it off, I'll look for another piercer. That's not a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Honesty.
Unless they all say it. If everyone's saying I'm not doing it, it's too dangerous, I'm not doing it, don't keep calling. If 10 piercers out of 10 are saying, no, I won't do it because it's too dangerous,
maybe you believe them.
Maybe you should start listening to them. Yeah.
Jaded says, hello, is Scar Away a good product to use to get rid of scar tissue? I'd like to replace the dermal in my chest, but I was advised to use Scar Away to get rid of some of that scar tissue first.
I can honestly say I have no idea what Scar Away is. I've only used Microdermal and scar tissue remover. Those products are probably all similar.
I would imagine they're mostly the same thing.
Probably totally fine. When you go to most pharmacies, you're going to find a scar tissue section. There's multiple brands. I just pushed the Microdermal because it's what I used and it's what worked for me. If it works and you like it, go for it and let us know in the comments.
Let us know.
I'd love to add more and say, oh, it worked perfect for me, and take before and after pictures too. So take it now, and maybe a month from now, a couple months from now, and you kind of see how big of a difference it makes. But the stuff generally does work.
That would actually be super cool if you could take some before and afters for us, because that would give some actual evidence to show other people about what's working and why.
Yep.
Katos says, what should I know about a vertical lip piercing?
I'm sorry, what?
What should I know about a vertical lip piercing?
The post is going to be long, so you have room for any swelling. Your lip is going to get nice and swollen. For a week after, your lip is going to look crooked, like it's a crooked piercing. And once the swelling goes back, it'll probably straighten out. You're going to need to downsize to a shorter post once it's all healed up, probably a minimum of a month. It's generally not too problematic unless you have a really flat lip. Then there's a chance for it to reject out. You have to have a little bit of a pouty lip. If you're constantly playing with it like that against your teeth, it's really bad for your teeth. Otherwise, if you're not playing with it, you downsize and you heal it properly, it's an awesome piercing.
D. Sal's says, hi, Scott. I was wondering what your opinions are on surgical steel or L shapes or screws for nose piercings. APP piercers usually hate these, and I'm not sure why.
I don't know if it's necessarily APP piercers. I think it's more newer piercers generally don't like them. Part of the issue with nostril screws, okay, I'm going to say this right now. They're called nostril screws, not nostril L's. Nostril L's are for lazy piercers who can't bend the screw. That little twist actually helps keep the jewelry in, and so it doesn't poke, and so it sits more comfortably in the nose. So it should be a screw, not an L. Second thing is a lot of people will buy pre-bent nostril screws. That's like buying a one-size-fits-all pair of pants. You can get it on, it's not going to be very comfortable, and it's not going to sit right. If you go to a piercer who bends them to custom fit for your nose, and then you have it readjusted once the swelling's gone down, I think nostril screws are great. But I also think the threadless pieces are even a little bit better, except you can't change them in and out yourself. That's the only downfall to the threadless ones. Otherwise, I prefer the threadless, but I still use the screws. That's the main reason why. If it's not bent properly, it's way too loose, bam, they just fall out and people lose their piercings, and that's really frustrating. But if it's done properly, it works. But not everyone's doing them properly, so they've developed a really negative name.
So a lot of times it might just not be adjusted properly, or it's difficult to adjust.
If they're not custom bending it to fit for your nose, you should get the threadless piece. That's the way I look at it.
And specifically with surgical steel, you were saying earlier, there's nothing wrong with it, but you prefer titanium just for weight reasons. And
well, there are some people who have allergies to nickel. There is a little bit of nickel inside the surgical stainless steel, and that's what people have the reactions to. There's also the weight. The weight could be a little bit of a factor. I love surgical steel because we can get a way higher polish on the steel than we can get the titanium, because the titanium is so hard. So they both have their benefits, but I prefer the titanium because of the lightweight factor and the chance that no one's really allergic to the implant grade titanium.
Summeril says, if you say to avoid cotton buds or Q-tips, what would be ideal for cleaning a septum? How are we supposed to do it without Q-tips?
I prefer like a paper towel or a piece of gauze, like a non-woven gauze.
How do you work a paper towel up your nose?
Okay, you're going to take a paper towel and you're going to roll it up into a nice little point. I don't have anything here.
Piece of paper?
A piece of paper? Okay, let's try that. So you take this giant paper towel here. You're going to roll it up to a nice tight point, and you can use that point to get in there and use it like you would a Q-tip to wipe the crusties off that are nice and soft. If you've sprayed and soaked it, they should just wipe right off. You shouldn't have to scrub it. But yeah, just roll it up to a little point and you can kind of get in there and you wipe around and get all the crusties off your piercing.
And that's not going to tie strings around the inside of your piercing.
It's the cotton fibers that cause all the problems. Like if you have little prong settings, it wraps around there. It's going to turn into a bacteria trap, and no one wants fuzzy jewelry that I know of.
Helax8 says, hello, can I consider my septum piercing healed after only a month? Because it doesn't hurt when I move it.
Consider it, yes, it's going to seem mostly healed, and that's what I like to tell people, but it does take a good couple more weeks to develop that fistula, which is the tubus scar tissue, to get thick enough to not get ripped or torn from changing the jewelry. So that's why we suggest good 6 to 8 weeks for everything to be fully developed. I think technically, no, you can't be fully healed until that's thick enough to prevent the ripping and tearing. So it's going to seem it, but it's not.
It's not quite strong yet.
But you're doing good. You're on track.
A. Gonzalez has a question. Hello, do you believe that piercings like Doth Piercings help with headaches, or is it a placebo effect?
I personally believe it's more placebo. Placebo is the true effect. I don't know a single piercer who's an acupressure specialist, an acupuncturist, any of that. It's all about specific areas. And then the other thing I like to think is that acupressure is like you're supposed to be putting pressure on a pressure point. Now, once your piercing heals, the hole relaxes and there's less pressure on that area. So it's relaxed. So it's not acupressure anymore. So in my opinion, this all started off with someone who probably had a migraine, came in to get a piercing. Oh, I got my piercing, my Doth, and my migraine's gone. You just got a huge adrenaline rush, and adrenaline is kind of a pain reliever, and that gets rid of any headache. And they went on Instagram or Pinterest or whatever it was and said, my Doth piercing just cured my migraine, and took off. That
being said, I'm sure that there are a lot of people who it worked for, and so we're not trying to discount that if it has worked for you or
Correct. I think it's more placebo, but I don't know if it would be long-term because of the whole pressure thing. It's tough. I don't really know.
That's what it comes down to, is it's tough without understanding acupressure. Like you said, without being an actual specialist in that stuff.
Or knowing any piercer who is that specialist. So are we going to hit that spot? I don't know what to look for.
Right.
I've been doing this a long time. I don't know any piercer who knows what to look for to get rid of that headache.
So it's not like you're picking the spot for what looks best, not because you know a specific area that fixes.
Correct. And I've had customers come in and say, it worked. It worked. I haven't had a headache in a year. So I don't understand. I'm not going to say, no, you're a liar.
Right.
But I don't think it works for everyone.
Right. Well, nothing works for everyone.
Correct. And another factor I like to say too is where your headaches are. Some mine get behind my eye. Some people are in the back of their head. Sometimes they're in the forehead here. It depends on what kind of headache you have too. That could be also another factor.
Susan says, thank you. Very helpful information. I'll go to a different piercer for the earring change. It hurts too much to do it myself.
It's nice to go to a different piercer and have them do it if that's the case. So yeah, you're very welcome.
What anatomy does an ear need in order to be compatible with an industrial?
Great question. This ear here, which Jared and I made, basically has ridges. You can see how there's like a natural ridge here on the front and the back. Okay, this would be a great candidate for an industrial piercing. The only thing you need to watch out is the center here. On an ear like this, you can see how that center part raises up pretty high, and it might the bar might rest right up against here. Now, the other ear I have here I want to show you is a bad example for an industrial, because you see how flat it is here? There's nothing to grab a hold of. You need that natural fold or ridge. You can get the front half done, but the back would reject right out. Now, the only option for here would be a custom bent industrial or a floating industrial, where it goes through the front and then shoots straight through the back this way. So it had like a hockey stick style
shape there.
Yeah.
Denise says, I had a Helix piercing years ago done with a gun, gasp. Could I try to get a proper piercing?
Yeah,
Love
absolutely. If you're talking about trying to put just normal jewelry inside that existing ear piercing gun, that's totally safe to do. The jewelry's going to be way more comfortable once you get body jewelry in there instead of the normal butterfly back. If you're talking about just getting it re-pierced, if it closed up, you can totally get pierced over that scar tissue as long as most of that scarring has gone away. If you have a big bump on your ear or there's discoloration, then you would want to wait longer and get some sort of scar tissue remover to help get rid of that.
Madison, earlier we were talking about, said that it didn't hurt at all. I believe it was, we were talking about the septum and worrying if it had gone through the cartilage.
Oh, good. That means it was done properly, and you just need to kind of readjust your jewelry. And another option too is you could always have it switched to a circular barbell that's opened up large enough where that could flip in like the retainer too. And then you don't need to worry about it coming out ever because you have the beads on there.
Anon says, I have a flat done in October of 21, a titanium labret, and a push pin solid gold front. So a threadless piece of jewelry. Mm-hmm. I've had to switch it back for a longer post than even the one I was pierced with. Would it be a bad idea to use a ring because it's causing issues?
Yes. Rings hardly ever help the situation because the ring is going to rotate, pulling crusties in. The bar should stay put, not pulling crusties back and forth. That's why bars heal way better than the rings do. Also, the rings have more of a chance to contort and lift up and down, which is pulling the curve through a straight piercing. So heal it up with the stud first. Be patient. These take a long, long time. Just make sure you're doing proper aftercare with wound wash spray and nothing else.
Catherine wants to know, what's the youngest age you recommend getting a tongue piercing?
Okay. 16 is the youngest we will pierce at my shop. Legally here in Nevada, it's 14. I personally think probably 16 and up is going to be the best age. It's so easy to kind of get in the habit of playing with it and do a lot of teeth damage. And the younger you are, the less you understand that. So 16 is the youngest I would do.
Kieran O'Sullivan says, hey, Scott, how are you?
What's up, Kieran? Good to see you here again. And we didn't forget about you. We got that other video, but we didn't get a chance to get it loaded and ready to go this live stream. He did, what is it, a trident piercing he sent in?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so maybe on next live chat, we're going to show another one of his videos getting a trident piercing. So cool.
Yeah, if you guys ever get any cool piercings or anything, you want to send us in a picture or video, feel free to do that. Send it to piercingwithscott@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Scott. We can't wait to stretch.
Excellent. Oh, and I also want to say this. If you guys aren't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. It helps us out so much. And that way you can always be updated on when we have new stuff coming up here. So
absolutely.
And the like button. Hit the like.
Hit that like. Do it for me. Sugar Waffle says, hi, love your videos. I got my septum pierced a month ago and I got a straight retainer with a ball. They said to come back in 4 to 6 weeks and they'll change it and I have to buy the jewelry there. Is that normal or can I just change it myself? And greetings from Germany.
Yeah, Germany. Awesome. You should be fine to change it yourself. I would wait probably closer to 2 months if you're changing it yourself. A lot of shops, there are people who come in with jewelry all the time here at this shop and they bring in from outside sources. I turn people away all the time because it's the wrong size, the wrong material. It's going to cause problems. and they get pretty upset. So it's almost easier just to have the jewelry here at the shop. I know we make a little bit more money that way. I'll put it in from an outside shop if it works, but most of the time people come in with the wrong stuff and they probably got frustrated, and that's why they say you got to buy it there. That's the only reason why. Yeah, you could change it yourself. Give yourself time to go see a piercer if you can't find the piercing. It's for septum, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because septums, you can't see where the piercing hole is, and a lot of people will lose the piercing the first time they do it. So make sure you have time to have a piercer help you if you can't get it in.
You mean like do it early in the day? So if you mess up, that's during business hours and you can go to your piercer?
Yeah, or like I got 5 minutes to get to work. I'm going to change my jewelry real quick. Oh, I can't find the piercing hole. I don't have time to go see the piercer to help me out anymore.
Okay.
You just lost your piercing.
Yep.
So, or 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know any shops that are open that late.
Right. You start messing around late at night and then there's no one to help. All right. Kidder Katau says, hello, I'm getting a septum piercing for my birthday. I'm pretty nervous and kind of scared for the aftercare. Do you have any tips for people who are nose pickers who want to get a septum?
We're all nose pickers. Some of us just admit it. Septum piercing, super easy to heal up. I suggest getting pierced with a circular barbell, the one with the 2 beads on each side. That way you can actually flip it up inside your nose. Tell your piercer you want to be able to hide it. And when it's flipped up, the jewelry can't move around. It's going to heal way faster. You're not going to pull crusties through. You get pierced with a ring with a bead on there. The ring can rotate back and forth and it pulls crusties through. It's going to sting a little bit, but if you stay on top of it, keep the crusties off there, it's not a big deal.
Deetra Williams says, I stretched my lobes to a 00, and then we backed back down to a 0, and we want to go back down again to a 2, but massage has not been working like it did when I reverted from the 0 to the 00. Do you have any recommendations?
You're trying to get it to shrink up?
Yeah, I think we're going 00 to 0, and then we're going 0 to 2 gauge.
Okay.
So we're trying to get it to shrink. And the first step, it worked. We massaged it and it went down to the 0. And now massage doesn't seem to be working as well. It's not sneaking back down to the 2.
If you are wearing any sort of jewelry, any sort of weight is going to keep it stretched. You have to wear nothing at all. You leave it be. Don't wear jewelry for days, possibly weeks, and that's when it's going to shrink up. But like some people are like, oh, I just put in normal earrings, little tiny rings. Even that weight and the distorting, contorting your ear is going to allow the piercing to stay open. So not wearing anything's probably the answer. It should close up. It depends on how big you were. If you were a much bigger, if you were like 3/4 of an inch or even bigger than that,
I think we only went up to 00.
Just the 00, it should shrink up.
And like you were saying to the person earlier, massage and possibly scar tissue gel could help you shrink up if the scar tissue is preventing it.
Yes, but sometimes scar tissue gel can kind of keep it raw and you might lose everything too. So
okay, so you lose the whole piercing.
Probably not from that size, but yeah.
So keep working with the massage, Deetra, and if you are wearing any jewelry in it at all, don't.
Yeah. If you want to close up, don't wear anything in there. That's probably the biggest factor. It's going to take time.
Just thank you, Anna and Madison. We appreciate you guys coming here and helping make the live stream happen, asking good questions.
Yes, thank you.
Finished saunas get very hot, 176 up to even 248 Fahrenheit. So maybe that's why they're not recommending people go into a finished sauna with a new piercing. That maybe the excessive heat is somehow an issue.
That's kind of what I was saying earlier. I don't know if it's going to cause problems with the healing tissue, but the metal itself can heat up. It's like if you're wearing a normal earring in a sauna, it's going to heat up too, but it's not going to like sear or burn your skin, I don't think. I don't know. I really don't know. I have to look into that. But you're right. It's like the heat is a factor if the metal is touching the body, but it's not like it's searing the skin.
Jaden's asking about an upper ear industrial. We actually just talked about that a couple minutes ago. So if you run the video back, you can see we describe exactly the anatomy you need for that piercing. Yes. When you said the earlobe piercing is easy,
generally,
so it's a pretty easy then. I don't really see the rest of the question there, so we'll just in general.
Yeah, earlobes are some of the easiest. It's the softest tissue. There's a lot of blood flow to the area. It can kind of move around. So like when you're sleeping on it, it's not being as twisted and contorted.
Also the easiest to stretch, probably. Maybe that's what we're talking about.
Stretch, yeah.
How long do we wait before we stretch?
6 to 8 weeks between each stretch. I would never stretch any sooner than that, unless your jewelry is literally falling out and you have to.
How long do we wait to change jewelry for new septums and nipples?
About 2 months. Oh, for septums, 2 months. For nipples, when they're more healed, probably 4 to 6 months would be the earliest you should change to something different.
Yes, and how long for the earlobe to heal up? That was the rest of the question.
Okay, yeah, 6 to 8 weeks on average to heal those up.
All right, reality check, agreeing with you that emu oil is amazing. It just works.
I wish I knew the true science why it works so good, but it's the only oil I ever suggest for piercing. It's so amazing. We also ordered some of that Grimu oil. Is that what it was called?
Yes, Grimu oil.
Which is like a vegan alternative to emu oil. I haven't had any bumps or irritations on anything, so I haven't got a chance to use it yet. And if any of you guys have ever tried the Grimu oil, let me know in the comments too. I'm curious what your opinion is of it.
Andrea, we were talking earlier about the nostril problems that we were having, where they had to use the hydrogen peroxide. So the person, their piercer, had them use hydrogen peroxide and then a saline solution, and then the bump inside with the nostril screw kept growing, and he changed the screw out for an L. Like that was what their piercer did.
And that worked?
To try to no, it hasn't worked. But that explains why the L was in there.
Okay.
They'd actually started with a screw and gone back to an L.
Well, here's the thing: like nostril screws only come so long. Like I order mine straight, and sometimes if someone's so swollen, by the time you put the bend on there, there's not enough room to put a curve, so it almost turns into a little bit of an L if you had to over accommodate for swelling. So
they're going to try the emu oil. Is that before or after the wound wash spray?
Generally I do it after. You spray, get all the crusties off there, and then you put a small dab of the emu oil on there. You rub it on the inside and outside of your nose, and just kind of leave it on there for a little bit. It works really well. It feels good instantly.
Uchechi says, is it true that you were in a band?
Yes. I wasn't in a famous band. It was a local band in Minnesota. It was been in a couple of real small ones. They're fun. I love being on stage.
Great comment here from Micah, because I think a lot of people fall into this pattern. I had a bump on my nostril piercing for months from over cleaning it.
Yes.
Stepping back to twice a day with saline solved the problem. Super frustrating, but less is more. Sending love from Argentina.
Awesome. Thanks for that comment. I say this every day to all my customers. Less is more. It's a small hole. Let your body heal it. Our body is capable of healing these small wounds, so we need to let it. We're just trying to promote the healing by keeping the crusties off. Awesome.
I've been considering getting a clavicle piercing. What are the risks with clavicle or microdermal chest piercings, and are they dangerous?
Okay, good. I'm glad you clarified. Clavicle piercing is like you got your collarbone right here. A lot of times people are doing surface bars right below the clavicle area. These are rough to heal. I don't know if I've ever seen one fully heal up, just because like when we move our arms back and forth, the skin stretches so much. Dermal anchors are probably going to work better than the actual surface bars in this area. But then seat belts, purses, bra straps, there's so many factors which can cause issues on this piercing. What I was worried about is there are some people who will do collarbone piercings where it's a big curve where it goes underneath the collarbone. And you only have like a 5 millimeter gap to hit in your lungs. It's extremely dangerous. I believe I talked about that on the 5 most dangerous piercings video. So if you haven't seen that video, that one's worth checking out. Crazy stuff on there.
Absolutely. We've got some positive comments about the jewelry boxes. People are interested. They think that'd be a good idea.
Awesome.
Antisocial wants to know, what's your top 3 tips for a lip piercing? I'm trying to convince my mom to let me get my lip done.
Top 3 tips. That's a tough one to convince a mom, because the post is going to stick out. It's going to seem big and swollen. That's a tough one. Find a time when you're not going to see her as much and wait till she can see it healed. That's your best option.
Right. Or switch and maybe look for the septum, because that is an easier
that might be an easier one.
Talk into.
But yeah, your lip is going to have to be oversized. You have to have the long post in for a month. There's no real hiding this one. It will leave a little bit of a scar. I know I'm not giving you the answers you're looking for, but I don't know what else I can say about it. I mean, it's just a piercing.
It's not that bad. Come on, Mom.
It's what all the cool kids are doing.
Oh, yeah. Try that.
Try that one.
The cool kids are doing
That's
it.
what I'm going
That's
with.
what I would go with. Uchechi wants to know, do Christina piercings have a particularly higher rejection rate? I want to get one for my 19th birthday, but I want it to last a long time.
Depends on your anatomy and depends on how it's pierced. They can be pierced with surface bars. They can be pierced with curved barbells. By the way, a Christina piercing is like the pubic mound, where basically the outer labias come together and it's that mound up above. And a lot of times we'll use like a curved barbell or a surface bar right up there. If you have the right anatomy, these can heal up and stay forever. If it's real thin and it doesn't protrude out very much, there's not much of a ridge to grab a hold of, then there's a real high chance of rejection. So you would need to talk to your piercer to see if you're a good candidate.
All right. We are getting towards the end of our time here, so we're just going to ask a couple more questions before we wrap it up. Miranda Dudley wants to know, what piercing is best to pair with a Doth?
If you only have a Doth piercing, best to patch maybe a Helix or an earlobe, just kind of like a little balance on the outside to kind of
balance it out that way.
Again, I would have to see your ear and see what anatomy you have. I mean,
to know exactly.
A Doth piercing, maybe a conch piercing to kind of go inside the inner part. You could do a bunch of lobe piercings. You could do an industrial piercing. And there's a lot of things. That's a little bit too vague.
Lots of
I
options.
have to see your ear.
Got to see an ear. Understandable. Yep. And finally, we're going to ask this one. We're going to ask this one from Sherry Wright. It's super important. If anyone's having problems like this, you got to pay attention to the answer. I'm finding my tongue and Labret bars are starting to hurt my teeth. I've got standard metal bars in both of them. Are there any recommendations for how I can stop them from hurting my teeth?
Downsize. The posts we put in there are going to be extra long so you have room for swelling. Now, if your tongue piercing or Labret piercing were pierced at a wrong angle and it's rubbing up against your gums or your teeth, you could be getting gum erosion or enamel erosion, which is permanent damage. Then you should take your piercings out if it's hurting your teeth. If you haven't downsized to a shorter post where it pulls it away from that, that's what you need to do. If you've downsized and it's still doing damage, take your piercing out and move on to a different one. It's not worth doing that damage. Listen to your body. Your body tells you what's right and what's wrong. So downsize or take it out. It's one or the other.
Thank you to everybody for coming in and asking all the questions. We apologize for not being able to get to the rest of the questions. We hope to get to you next week or in 2 weeks in our next live stream. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Again, hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and of course, keep putting holes in your body. See you on the next video.